when I was really young, my parents signed me up for piano lessons with this hilariously strict, I think he was German, and he and I did not see eye to eye. Because I was very much just let me play around, and he was very much no, you have to practice all the scales and do all these very specific things. And I just wanted to, let me just play the songs, let me figure them out. Because with piano, I can kind of like plunk out the main melody of a song just by hearing it. And so I would kind of be like, oh, well, I get this, like, what's the other part? And he'd be like, well, to do that, you have to do all these scales and all these practices so you can and I just didn't want to do any of it. So that lasted, maybe 2 years. And after that, I played a lot of harmonium. The harmonium is an Indian instrument, and so I was raised in Self-Realization Fellowship, and they do all of their chants on harmonium and tabla. And it's actually a wind instrument. It's not a string instrument like a traditional piano, but it's set up like a piano with keys and everything like that, but you pump while you're playing. So I played some of that for chants and everything because it was fun, and my dad was doing it, and I was like, oh, I want to learn to play the things, and I would figure out the songs. And then I started playing drums because my dad had been a drummer. He did drum and bugle corps and like all of that stuff. He did competitions. He was into like rock and roll music. He used to go and play down at Electric Ladyland Studios in, outside Jersey, because that's where he grew up. And so that's kind of how I got my start in like rock music, was playing drums. And then I figured out that I really wanted to sing because I liked singing, and I had started doing musical theater at that time. And people were like, oh, you can sing really well. So it's like, oh, okay, maybe I should move up to the frontman sort of position. I started a band with my brother and quit my other band, which was called Neighborhood Ruckus. And then I joined a band with my brother, and he decided that the name of that band should be Fried, spelled P-H-R-Y-D-E. Because, that's how cool bands do it. And so I was the frontman of that for a while. So I borrowed a guitar from my buddy Nick and started learning. And when I graduated, my dad bought me the old Washburn. And that's what I started really learning on and like playing. And I went to 2 guitar lessons, never went back. And I just taught myself chords. I just wanted a guitar so that I could sing on stage and people wouldn't look at me funny. That was basically the whole point of it. It was either E Street Cafe back in the day when that existed, or it was Miracle's Coffee House. And I'm pretty sure I went with my buddy who had subbed as a drummer for Fried, who's a good friend of mine. And this guy was like a guitar genius. And I remember him saying like, hey, I'm gonna go out to an open mic, do you wanna come? And at this point I'd kind of been writing songs, and they were all very simplistic, but I was like, yeah, like, let's go and have a good time. And he went up right before me, and I remember I was so nervous that I instantly played all of my songs that night at like quadruple speed from what I had written them as. Because I was like, nobody wants to hear this. I'm just gonna play as fast as I can and get off the stage. So I just started playing really fast, and it got a lot of applause. So for a good 3 or 4 years after that, all of my songs became like at least double speed from what I had originally written them as, until I was like, you know what, maybe I can pace my songs the way I want to and people will still like them. There is a house in New Orleans, House of the Rising Sun. It was either House of the Rising Sun, because that was the first song I learned to play in its entirety, or it was a song I had written about this girl that I had a crush on. I don't think it had a name, but we'll call it Twin Suns. Yeah, I still to this day do not name my songs. And I try, like Matt, I'll play with him and he'll be like, oh, what's the name of that song that we're playing? I'm like, I don't know, I don't name my songs. He's like, okay, we'll call it this. I always joke if I ever made an album, I should just call myself Untitled Artist. And that would be Untitled Track 1, Untitled Track 2, Untitled Track 3. Yeah, that's always been my go-to joke, because I really just don't even think about the name of a song. I always let other people name my songs because I don't know what to do about that. The first one that I probably was proud enough to play was that Twin Suns one, and it goes, twin suns in a diamond sky, sea green the foam rides high, lapping waves make a sound of grace, take me to that special place, and I wanna feel you over me, there's so much that I can see, when you smile that special smile, let me sit and bask a while in you. And then it goes into the chorus, and there are definitely some other ones in there, but they were literally just like A, G, like oh baby, baby, or something like, a Justin Bieber song or something. It's kind of an unwritten rule of open mic that sometimes people talk about, but if you open with something people know, it gets them on your side. So I think there was that going through my brain, but there was also, that was the song I'd been practicing literally since I picked up guitar. So it was like comfort zone. And it's also vocally impressive. So I think there's always that feeling of, what do I sing that will instantly get people to go, oh, he's good. It's one of those like ego balances of, you've got to convince the audience that you're good. And you have to feel like you're good at what you're doing. But you don't want to get to that place where you're like, oh, I'm a fucking rock star at open mic, because nobody likes that guy. So it's, I think if you start with a cover, it's not too much of an ego thing. It's like, I didn't write this, I didn't make this, but I can play it pretty well. So hopefully you'll enjoy. Sometimes I'll have like a idea for one line or one hook. That's the rarer case. In general, what I'll do is I'll be messing around on my guitar and I'll do something and be like, oh, that sounds cool. And then I'll play through it. And then either I'll start writing the lyrics there if they kind of come instantly, or I'll go, now where can this go? And then once I've kind of found the body of the song, then I start writing. I just play and sing whatever comes to mind, and then I have my little notepad there and I just furiously scribble down words and then sing them again until the next part comes. It's usually how I write. When I'm not playing guitar, it's even quicker. Like if I'm writing with other people and they're the ones playing the guitar or orchestrating, I'll just come up with the lyrics and write like as I'm singing, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, can you go to like a minor chord here, or like something like that, like we need a break right here. So it's kind of this weird thing. There've been a couple that literally just were songs in my head, and there have been a couple that I wrote on acid that I'm pretty sure were just, I don't know how to describe it other than I was just tripping and it was what came out. And those are some of my favorite songs, actually, because they're not something I normally would do. Like they have weird ways of playing the guitar, or weird fingerings, or weird, voicings of the chord that, like, one I wrote and I started playing this high C shape and, going down on the neck, and I was like, I had no clue what that was or what it, I'm very musically illiterate in that way. I don't really, I know music theory, especially vocally, and I understand, fifths and minors and all of that stuff. But on the neck of a guitar, when someone's like, oh, will you do like a high B? I'm like, I know where the B string is. Is that what you mean? I don't know. Other than the chords I've learned from looking up tabs, and I don't even read, I can read tab, but it's like the same way I can read sheet music. It's very dink, dink, it's not, I can't read tab and just play it. Especially finger picking or anything beyond just doing simple arpeggios of a chord, I can't do functionally very well. So yeah, in general, I just kind of play the chords and then put lyrics on top. Folk rock, I guess, like indie folk would be the closest thing I would compare myself to, but I've also you know, I have songs where it's like, oh, this is my Nirvana inspired song, or oh, this is my like cowboy song or whatever. Like, even though I don't really write many of those. I mean, Matt always says I play cowboy chords, and I don't know what that means, but my inner brain is like, I don't write country, first off. And I think that's a little raw nerve for me, because when I was doing musical theater, one of my directors was like, you'd have a great voice for country. And I hate most country music. Like, any country music I like, I just call it folk music, and that way I never have to say I like a country artist. That's my own little thing. But yeah, I guess you would call most of them indie folk, or I guess you could call it alternative. But it also really, like, most of my songs I write and I play by myself, right? But then once I get a band behind me and they add all their pieces, it can turn into anything. Like, I've had a song that I wrote that was this nice kind of slow, like really etheric sounding song. But then the second I got a band behind me, all of a sudden it was electric guitar and like heavy drums, and it became this like almost metal song. So I think the genre is sort of defined by the performance rather than the song. Because you can take any song and do it however. I'm just limited by the fact that I only really play acoustic guitar. I've owned one Fender electric guitar for maybe 2 years before I sold it, because I never played it. And yeah, so it just works better if you're on stage doing that sort of stuff to play mostly to that, you know, indie folk kind of Mumford and Sons hipsterish type sound. Not that that's what I am per se, but it works. That's like my for fun passion is I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm definitely a singer. My songwriting, it comes or goes how proud I am of my songwriting. But I know I've got a good voice, and I know I'm a good singer. And I would, 9 times out of 10, I'd rather be playing my own stuff than covers. But there's a lot of great covers out there that nobody does, so I like to kind of shoot for those, generally speaking. But I still have my pocket picks, you know, to get people on my side. The Beatles are up there for sure. King Crimson. Not that I write like King Crimson on any level, but just that feel and the way that he sings. Tool, anything Maynard James Keenan touches, I'm down. Especially his vocal style. Built to Spill is in there. They have this really interesting, etheric, mathematical quality to the way they write. And I think the way I play is very influenced by the way that they do their chord voicings, because they'll do a lot of stuff where they're hitting the chords in different ways, but it's not, the rhythm guitar at least is not like super precise on individual notes, but you hear individual changes of notes within the chords and the way that they're, because I'll do a lot of hammer-ons and hammer-offs and all that's, like, even if I'm hitting the same chord for a measure or two, I'm never playing it the same way in that measure. So there's that. The Shins, like, probably one of my top 5 favorite bands of all time. Although if you asked me to make a list, it would never be the same twice. There's definitely some Mumford and Sons influence in there. When their album Sigh No More came out, I had just gone through a breakup with my ex-fiance, and that was like a pivotal album for me because it's very sad and depressing. So it was like the album that was constantly on in my car as I drove around weeping over the loss of my love. Let's see, who else? Definitely some Blue Cheer in there. Nirvana and anything Chris Cornell did is also in there for sure. Mine specifically, you know, I think for me a lot of songwriting is either trauma or aspirational. And what I mean by that is either a song is dealing with something that your conscious mind has trouble dealing with due to trauma or pain, or it's something that you're looking for in the world that you haven't found an answer to. That's my personal thing. It's either like, oh, you know, me and this girl broke up because she was an alcoholic, and how do I deal with that? How do I process that? Because we had all this stuff going on, and you know, now I have to kick her out of my life. But there's X, Y, and Z that I loved about being around her, and I loved, you know, being with her kids and all this stuff. So how do I deal with that? Or, oh, you know, I really want to understand the deeper mysteries of the universe. Like, what the hell is going on here? What's entropy? What's time? What, you know, what's the meaning to all this shit? So those are kind of the two places most of my music comes from. And then every once in a while there's the song that just kind of comes out that's like fun for the sake of fun. But I feel like those are pretty rare with me. Like, I'm not the guy that's going to write the song like, oh, let's go to the club and party. Like, that's not really my style. Every once in a while I kind of just have an idea that it'd be dumb not to write down, and it is that type of song. But those are pretty freaking rare. And then sometimes I actually have a couple songs where I just write the most absurdist shit that I can think of just to see what happens. And some of those songs I've had people tell me are like super meaningful to them, and I'm like, great, you know, because artist intention is one thing, but it rarely means anything to the audience. So sometimes when you write those absurdist lyrics that just mean jack to you personally, but people can find meaning in that a lot easier than a very specific scenario. So that's fun to do every once in a while. I have 4 or 5 songs like that are just, I just wrote words. It's kind of like a Jackson Pollock of music. I just kind of flung paint at the canvas. and some people really find it to be deep. Oh God. I don't think there's a catch-all answer to that. I think the ultimate art, and I won't say a form because it can be whatever, but the ultimate art is an honest expression of someone. I think that's what ultimate art is. It's just honest expression of whatever it is. Now, the form to me is unimportant. It can be a painting, it can be a movie, it can be a performance art dance piece. But if it's true, honest expression and not pedantic or ego bullshit, that's what real art is. Which I think is why I get so angry about a lot of things with art, because, and not angry is not the right word. I'm just kind of sick of a lot of the, you know, this is the pop machine that just churns out the same thing because that's what sells. And, you know, sometimes that honest expression can slip through those cracks. And, you know, something like The Matrix started off that way for sure. It was this big summer popcorn movie, you know, but it definitely had some honest expression there for sure. Or even, you know, Avatar, which I personally don't get it. I don't get the big appeal of that film. I mean, it was pretty, like it was, but James Cameron definitely honestly just wanted to do something, and I applaud that. I don't like it as a film. It was boring to me. It was like, okay, I've seen this movie 100 times. It's Pocahontas. It's Dances with Wolves. I get it. Save the blue people. But I understand why people liked it so much. So, yeah, I think that to me is just the ultimate. When you can just be raw and real and honest, and you're putting a piece of yourself out to the world, that's the ultimate art. The Killing Moon, which is just a phenomenal song. I don't really know the story behind it, but I know that it is hauntingly beautiful every time I hear it. Under blue moon I saw you, so soon you'll take me up in your arms, too late to make you cancel it, though I know it must be the killing time, unwillingly mine. fate, up against your will, through the thick and thin. Beautiful, beautiful song. Kurt Cobain said it's like the most beautiful song ever written. Great song. Speaking of Kurt Cobain, Heart-Shaped Box. Great expression of true, like something was, almost everything he did except for like Smells Like Teen Spirit, which in itself is honest as well because it's him making fun of how they got popular and the bullshit. You know, stuff like that. Sun Shower by Chris Cornell. Holy God, if you listen to a live version of that song, haunting. There was a Mumford & Sons, they did a Bookshop Sessions version of Little Lion Man, and he's straight up like weeping during the chorus, and that's just so powerful. Whitney Houston, her rendition of I Will Always Love You is, I mean, it's not even her song, but it's nails it on the head. Paranoid Android by Radiohead. Oh, that song, every time, chills. Like even just thinking about it, it's like, whoo. I would say While My Guitar Gently Weeps by the Beatles. I don't know the name of it because I never gave it one. I guess I would call it Home. It's a song about finding your way back to that source, whatever that source is. You know, because I'm a pretty, you know, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. Yeah, I had that moment of questioning that I think we all do, especially if we believe in something beyond what we can see on any level. And I wrote that song, and it was actually one of them that I wrote while I was on LSD. Or no, I was on mushrooms when I wrote this one. But I would play that song because it's kind of a what the fuck's going on here? Who gives a shit? I'll know it all once I get back home. It'd either be Lilac Wine. Jeff Buckley does a version of it that's another one that's a very honest song. Or Make Them Hear You, which was actually ironically written by Randy Newman. But it was written for a musical, and it's just this, when done right and done well, is so powerful. It's so powerful. Music to me has always kind of been, all of my art that I've ever done has always been, I have these higher ideals and I have these feelings of what society and the world should be focused on and what's really important. How do I get that message out without being an asshole? How can I change someone's opinion in a beneficial way? How do I get that ball moving? And so music to me has always been that inspirational thing of, I'm trying to lift you up and or change your perspective in a way that's non-aggressive or non-intrusive. And music is really good at that. Movies are really good at that because people will pay attention even if they don't necessarily agree. And you can kind of, if they're being entertained while you're doing it, you can sneak a little worm inside their brain that may eventually crawl to the center, you know. So I would want to leave with something that was like, hey, I gotta go, but maybe think about this before I'm out of here.